Have you ever stared at a hotel reservation confirmation, your heart pounding like a drum, knowing the room you booked for your anniversary was being used by your wife and another man? I saw it right there on the screen, the check-in notification from the DeLangham in Chicago. A place I'd chosen for its view of the river, a view we were supposed to share. My hands trembled, not from anger, but from a cold, hollowing shock that seemed to freeze my very blood. My wife, Sarah, was supposed to be at a work conference in Naperville. But the GPS tracker I'd secretly placed in her car told a different story. A story that was unfolding just 20 miles away in the heart of downtown Chicago. That single notification, that simple digital ping, was the starting gun for the end of my world. And I knew, standing there in our silent kitchen, that I had to see it for myself. If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel, tell us where you're from, and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. It started subtly, as these things so often do. A phantom smile while she was texting. A sudden obsession with her phone's privacy, angled away from me on the couch. Sarah, the woman I'd loved since college, the one who decried with laughter on our first date at that little Italian place on Rush Street, was becoming a stranger in our own home. The excuses piled up like unopened mail. Late nights at the office. Weekend workshops, dinners with new colleagues I was never invited to meet. Her name was Evelyn, a senior partner at her law firm, Sarah had said. The mentorship was a huge opportunity. I wanted to believe her. I clung to the image of the woman I married, the one who held my hand through my father's funeral and celebrated every small victory as if it were a Super Bowl win. But the evidence was a slow, agonizing drip. A credit card statement with a charge for two at a fancy restaurant. Gibson's Bar and Steakhouse, on a night she was supposedly working late, floral scent on her coat that wasn't her perfume. Then came the phone call. I picked up her phone one evening when she was in the shower, thinking it was her mother. The name on the screen was Mark Jennings. My stomach twisted. Mark was her ex-boyfriend from law school. A man I'd always felt a current of rivalry with, a smug, overly confident guy who never seemed to accept that she'd chosen me. I didn't answer. The call was a crack in the dam, and the truth was beginning to flood through. The emotional distance grew into a chasm. Sarah became cold, critical. My questions about her day were met with sighs and accusations of being needy, of not trusting her. "You're suffocating me, David," she'd say, her voice laced with an irritation that felt rehearsed. She and Mark, I later learned, were laughing about it. They felt invincible, wrapped in the arrogance of their secret. One night, I found her diary. I know a violation of privacy, but my sanity was hanging by a thread. The pages weren't filled with love for me, but with thrilling descriptions of their secret meetings, mocking my cluelessness, planning a future that didn't include me. The words blurred through my tears. The humiliation burned hotter than any anger. I sat on the floor of my own closet, clutching that book, and I broke. It was a silent, gut-wrenching sob, the sound of a man realizing his entire life was a lie. That night, something inside me shifted. The grief turned to ice. The pain forged itself into a cold, hard resolve. My breakdown became my breakthrough. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was going to be the architect of their downfall. I started gathering proof with meticulous precision. I bought a high-quality voice-activated recorder and hid it in her car. I installed keylogger software on our shared home computer. I photographed every damning text message, saved every suspicious receipt. I opened a new bank account and began quietly moving half of our joint savings, documenting every transfer. I contacted the best divorce attorney in Chicago, a shark named Mr. Harrison, and laid out my plan. He listened, his face impassive, and then a slow smile spread across his lips. "Mr. Miller," he said, "this is going to be biblical. The trap was set for our 10th anniversary. I'd booked the suite at the Langham months in advance, telling Sarah it was a surprise. 2 weeks before, she told me with practiced regret that a mandatory work retreat had been scheduled for that exact weekend. Her performance was flawless. The disappointed sigh, the hand on my arm, the promise to make it up to me. "I'm so sorry, babe," she'd said, looking right into my eyes. "It's for that big promotion." I smiled, a hollow, empty gesture, and told her I understood. Of course I did. I understood everything. The day of our anniversary, I watched the GPS tracker as her car bypassed the exit for the supposed retreat center and headed straight for downtown Chicago. My heart was a cold, heavy stone in my chest. I had already checked into the suite next to the one I'd booked for us. I had paid the hotel concierge generously to inform me the moment a Mr. Mark Jennings checked into her room. The call came at 4:15 p.m. I gave them an hour. Then, with a copy of their room key, another perk of a generous tip, I walked to their door. I didn't knock, just swiped the card, pushed the door open, and stepped inside. The scene was exactly as I had pictured in my nightmares. Champagne on ice, clothes strewn across the floor, and them tangled together in the bed I had reserved for my wife and me. The silence that fell was absolute. Sarah's face went from shock to horror to a pale, ghostly white. Mark just looked pathetic, scrambling for a sheet to cover himself. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just stood there in the doorway, my phone held up, recording. "Happy anniversary, Sarah," I said, my voice eerily calm. "I see you got my gift." I turned the camera to Mark. "And Mark, good to see you again. I'll be sending a copy of this to your wife." Into the Illinois State Bar Association, adultery is still a factor in character and fitness reviews, you know. I didn't wait for a response. I just backed out, closed the door, and walked away. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. The video, along with every piece of evidence I'd gathered, went to our lawyers. I filed for divorce the next morning, citing adultery with irrefutable proof. The diary entries were submitted to the court. The audio recordings from her car, capturing their cruel jokes and detailed plans, were played during the deposition. Sarah was obliterated. Her firm fired her, citing the scandal's potential damage to their reputation. Mark's wife filed for divorce, taking him for everything he had. The social circle that once adored Sarah now treated her like a leper. Her friends vanished. Her family was ashamed. The court sided with me on every single point, awarding me the house and the majority of our assets. She was left with nothing but her shame and the consequences of her choices. I sold the house on North Clark Street, the one we had built together, and moved to a small, quiet apartment overlooking Lake Michigan. Sometimes I walk along the shore when the water is gray and choppy, mirroring the cold tranquility that has settled inside me. The anger is gone, replaced by a vast, quiet emptiness. I don't feel joy in her ruin, only a profound and chilling sense of justice served. Vengeance, I've learned, isn't a fire. It's a frozen, silent landscape where nothing grows again. I saw her once, months later, working as a waitress in a diner out in the suburbs. She didn't see me. She looked tired, her shoulders slumped, the arrogant spark in her eyes long since extinguished. I just finished my coffee, paid my bill, and walked out into the cold Chicago air. Some fires are meant to burn everything down to the ground. The end.